Your tomato plant didn't get tired. It stalled for one of four reasons, and every one of them is fixable if you catch it in time. Here's what most people miss. A plant that stalls in July can sit there doing nothing for the rest of the season if you don't correct the actual cause within days, not weeks. And the instinct almost everyone reaches for, dump on more nitrogen, feed it harder, that's often the exact thing that pushes it further from fruiting and toward blossom end rot instead. Most folks figure a stalled plant is just old and done or hungry. 55 years of growing these has shown me it's neither. Fruit set is a narrow window of conditions, and most of that window is yours to control. So we'll go through feeding, pruning, watering, temperature, and what to do if yours has already stopped. Your tomato plant didn't get tired. That first big flush of fruit pulls sugars toward the tomatoes already swelling on the vine, so the plant drops some of the new blossoms instead of feeding them. That's normal. It's the plant budgeting, not quitting. Left alone, most plants ease back into flowering within a couple weeks. But three things turn that normal pause into a dead stop. A run of hot days pushes pollen past the point it can do its job. Watering that swings from dry to soaked confuses the plant's whole system. And too much nitrogen at the wrong time tells the plant to grow leaves instead of flowers. Any one of those, and easing turns into stalling for good. I'll say this plainly because I've seen it go both ways on my own place. If your plant is a determinate type, a bush variety, it is built to flush once hard and then taper off, and no feeding trick or pruning cut changes that. Never stop producing only holds for the vining, indeterminate kind. For everything else, get the feeding rhythm right first. Get that wrong and nothing after it holds. The instinct almost everybody reaches for when a plant stalls, feed it more. And it's usually the wrong move. Dump on a high nitrogen feed and you get exactly what nitrogen does. Leaves, big, dark, healthy-looking leaves, and no flowers underneath, because the plant's putting its energy into growing bigger, not into setting fruit. The rhythm that works is lower nitrogen, higher phosphorus and potassium, and you don't side dress nitrogen until fruit is already forming. Once it is, feed every 2 to 3 weeks. Container plants can't hold nutrients like ground soil, so they want soluble feed weekly to biweekly. And before you measure anything out, over-fertilizing burns roots and leaves through salt buildup, and that shows up as sudden wilting on a plant that looked fine the day before. Spilled feed gets eaten too, by a dog, by whatever's moving through the yard at night. Measure against the label rate, keep it labeled and away from where kids or pets play, and never eyeball a little extra. Organic only doesn't lock you out. Compost, organic liquid feeds, blood meal, same principle, same timing. Feeding gives the plant what it needs. Where it sends that is a pruning cut, not a fertilizer bag. Here's the tightened version, cut to length while keeping every beat and the bridge. The advice I hear most in a tomato patch is cut it all off. Strip every sucker and the plant pours everything into fruit. Wrong, and it depends entirely on what's growing in front of you. Two kinds of plant. Indeterminate, the vining type, does well with 2 or 3 main leaders. Pick them early, take the extra suckers off as they come. Determinate, the bush type, is built to throw one concentrated flush, and a lot of that fruit forms on the side shoots you'd be cutting off. Strip one down thinking you're helping, and you've cut your own harvest in half. I've watched a plant that would have filled a basket fill maybe half of one instead. No time to fuss over any of this. Here's the floor. Pull the lower leaves once they touch soil or the first truss sets. Stake it once. Leave the suckers alone. That closes off the main path. Blight spores splash up from wet ground. Not the fine-tuning, the foundation. Wipe your pruners or your knife with isopropyl alcohol between plants every time. A dirty blade carries disease from a sick plant to a healthy one. Keep that alcohol capped away from kids, away from any flame. It's flammable. Get the pruning right and you've fixed the airflow. But none of that saves you if the watering's a mess underneath. Now, how much water and how often? There's an old idea you should let a tomato dry out between waterings to toughen the roots. Forget it. It does the opposite. What damages fruit is the swing itself. Dry, then flooded, then dry again. That disrupts calcium moving into the fruit and changes how fast it's expanding. That's blossom end rot and cracking, not a shortage of calcium in your soil. I call it a watering problem wearing a calcium costume, and I've watched it come and go with nothing but the rainfall pattern. It isn't contagious either, won't jump fruit to fruit, so there's no need to strip the plant. Just fix the moisture. In the ground, that's about an inch a week. 1 to 2 gallons a plant in mild weather, 2 to 3 in heat, soaked in slow at the base. Containers dry faster, some need water daily, twice in a heat wave. Mulch, straw, compost, shredded bark evens that out. Skip cocoa mulch if you've got dogs, it's toxic to them, and check your pots have drainage. No holes means roots sit in water and rot, and a full saucer draws mosquitoes or a thirsty pet. Empty it. Get the moisture even, and you've solved rot and cracking. But even perfect watering won't stop blossoms dropping when the temperature swings past what pollen can survive. People will tell you tomatoes need bees. They don't. Every flower carries both parts in one blossom. What it needs is movement, wind, a bee working the truss, or your hand giving it a tap. I've shaken plenty of trusses myself on a still, muggy morning when nothing was flying. But shaking can't fix everything. Pollen has a working range roughly 60 to 75 degrees at night, 70 to 90 in the day. Push past around 104 for a few hours, 2 days running, and that pollen goes non-viable or too sticky to move. No amount of tapping brings it back that week. Summers clearing 95 for long stretches. Shade cloth and heat-tolerant varieties buy some room, but they won't cancel a real heat wave. Better to time plantings for spring and fall than fight July straight through. For the heat you can fight, put up 30 to 50% shade cloth, lighter in mild climates, heavier where 90 is normal, and pull the canopy back into range. Secure it properly, though. Loose cloth flapping in the wind catches a paw before you know it. Check the fastenings. No trailing rope. Now, heat, water, feed. If your plant's stalled, which one's to blame, and where do you start? Here's the order I'd walk a stalled row in myself. Temperature first and over 104 for a few hours, 2 days running? That's your answer. Get shade up. Nothing else matters this week. No? Move to water. Feast 1 week, bone dry the next. That's your blossom drop and your blossom end rot both, and it's fixable. But it takes days to weeks to show, so don't stack another fix on top before this one's had time. Third, nitrogen. Fed heavy and early, before fruit was even setting, stop feeding and wait. Fourth, and only fourth, check the foliage for disease. Here's the one I won't soften. Whole plants down with late blight or a bad viral infection. No pruning, no feeding, no watering rhythm brings that back. Pull it, rotate where you plant next year, and don't toss those blighted leaves in your home pile. Most backyard compost never gets hot enough to kill that pathogen, and you're planting next year's tomatoes straight into this year's disease. Bag it, bin it, or let a municipal system handle the heat. Get the order right, and a plant with weeks before frost can flower again in 1 to 2 weeks. But no diagnostic fixes a pot that was too small from the start, or a determinate plant simply done with its flush. Now let's talk about what's around the plant, not just in it. A stake or a cage looks harmless standing there empty in April. Load it with a full-grown vine and a wind picks up in July, and an unanchored one goes over. That's a problem for the tomato, sure, but it's also a problem for whatever's nearby when it falls. A curious dog, a kid cutting through the yard. So drive your stakes deep before the plant leafs out and gets heavy. Tie tall cages to a fence or a wall if you've got one close, and swap out anything rusted or sharp before the season gets going. That's not overcaution. That's just what I do every spring before I let a plant lean on anything. Same goes for the eggshell in the hole trick, or burying banana peel to feed the roots. All that does most years is tell a raccoon or a rat there's digging to be done, a method that fixes your tomato and hands a problem to the dog or the neighbor's yard doesn't count as fixed. That's the whole rule, really. If you're renting, none of that changes much. Containers, portable cages tied to a rail, shade cloth you can take down, all of it travels. What doesn't travel is a pot that's too small. 10 to 15 gallons for a bush type, 15 to 20 or better for a vining one. Get that right at planting, and you're not fighting the container all August. Tell me which one it actually was. Feed, water, pruning, or heat. Put it in the comments. And tell me what you're growing, determinate or indeterminate, because that changes what you should even be expecting from it this year. Then go check your plants. The answer's usually right there on the truss.